The story I want to share with you is, again, so that this doesn't sound so abstract. And I'd come up through the Zen Buddhist tradition, and I was 25, so that was about 32 years ago. And I was going to go to a retreat, a seven-night retreat. And Zen retreats are very grueling, actually, especially when you're somewhat new to them. My mother used to call them, when I'd go off to retreat, she'd say, "Oh, you're going off to Buddha boot camp." Because it actually has a lot of qualities of like a boot camp in a way. And but before I was going to go to this retreat, about a month or two before the retreat, I was really looking forward to this retreat, and I had probably the first really significant sort of spiritual shift that I'd had up till that point, and it was very, very meaningful to me and very, very life transforming. And so knowing that this retreat was coming up, I was really looking forward to it, which wasn't always the case, quite honestly, especially in the sort of early years, because I knew they can be, quite rigorous and demanding, And so I was looking forward to this, and especially because this sort of revelatory experience, it just filled me with a sense of well-being and a kind of confidence. And so I had this idea in my head, which should have been my first tip-off, that something other than I thought was going to happen at this retreat was going to happen. So I went off to this retreat looking forward to it, a certain sense of confidence, definitely a sense of deep well-being. And got to the retreat, and almost immediately it just turned into this extraordinarily difficult retreat. I can't exactly articulate why that is. I had no idea at the time. But I sort of felt almost like a caged animal. Like I just felt like I have to get out of here. Which is really strange because I've been so anticipating going to this retreat and looking forward to it, and it just had this sort of revelatory experience that had a lot of confidence and well-being, and almost immediately when the retreat started, it all just sort of disappeared like snapping your fingers, and I almost experienced like the equal and opposite of that. It was very contracted, huge amounts of sort of adrenaline flowing through my system. And to make a long story short, I think it was about the fourth or fifth day, I just kind of cracked. And I found myself sneaking away from the retreat when everybody went into the meditation hall and nobody would be able to see me creeping away, and I kind of snuck away and got in my car and was driving home, and it's hard to articulate, it was a long time ago, I was pretty young, but it felt like an extraordinarily crushing sort of defeat, and I kind of really felt in a way that's hard to articulate or explain, even to myself now, but I really kind of felt like, okay, I gave this thing my best shot, I threw myself completely into my spirituality, and I just sort of felt whatever happened at that retreat just broke me, and I didn't understand why it happened or what was going on. But and so I drove off from that retreat thinking, well, I guess that's it. I threw everything I had at this thing, and this is what's come of it. So drove a couple hours home. Strange thing, as soon as I pulled up in the driveway, I had this little. You get that still, small voice occasionally in there, and this little still, small voice said, just go into your backyard. I had a little meditation hut I had built in the backyard, and just go into the meditation hut and sit down. And my rational mind thought, that's weird. I was quite sure that this thing was all over with. I sort of defeated, but I thought I had no resistance left, and so I just walked into the backyard, and I went into my little meditation hut, and I sat down on my cushion, and almost immediately this, I suppose, in a conventional sense, it was an immense heart opening occurred. And it was that experience. Some of you may have had it. As I said, there's many different qualities or essences of love. And this one felt like a pure gift, just a total grace, absolutely unexpected, at one of my more defeated moments that I had experienced up until that moment in my life. And all of a sudden there was this immense opening of the heart. And it was a kind of love that I'd never experienced. Now, that's why I call it redemptive love, because as an experience of being, what it felt like in some sense was that everything, and I mean everything, was completely forgiven. And I didn't even walk around thinking there was a lot I had to be forgiven for. I'm sure there was, more than I knew, but everything felt suddenly forgiven. Everything felt completely whole. I felt whole, from being totally broken to feeling totally whole. And it extended into everything I looked at, everything I encountered. I could sort of see and experience and feel this immense quality of love. And the thing, especially at that time, being a good Buddhist, was one of the strange things that happened right in the middle of all this was I had like this, almost like if you could think of the booming voice of God or something, right? And Buddhists don't usually think in God-like terms, but this sort of voice. And it said, "This is how I love you, and this is how you shall love all things and all beings." And it was clear to me that it was a gift. There was no sense of, I didn't create it, didn't deserve it, if we can even speak in those terms. And here was this sort of booming voice it was a confirmation of that it was a gift. But the interesting thing also was what came with it was the second part is what really stuck with me. And this is how you shall love all things and all beings. And of course, my little rational human mind just sort of thought, well, good Lord, how could someone ever do that? It's one thing to have that be, in a sense, at least experientially gifted from the heart of being, but to have it as a sort of kind of a human challenge. And so I got up after a while, and as broken and defeated as I felt, I felt this sense of tremendous well-being, this love, but it was also a very humbling kind of love, in a beautiful sense of humbling. I didn't feel personally exalted by it. I felt humbled by it because it felt like it was a gift. And from that day forward, it became one of my sort of life koans. In Zen, there's koans, which are questions or stories, or kind of a riddle that you're often given by the teacher, and it's an object of meditation, and you are asked to kind of resolve the koan. And of course, you can't resolve koans through the intellect, no matter how bright you are. You almost have to have some sort of revelatory opening to get the resolution. And then we have also in Zen we call life koans, what my teacher used to call the life koan. And probably most of you in this room have your own versions of life koans. Life itself is a koan. It's this immensity of the unknown, like just some cosmic riddle, and each person is sort of working their way through it and encountering all the very human ups and downs of life, right? And so I took this on as like, this is a koan. Yes, it was a sort of freely given gift, but it also had this other I realized like I have now suddenly been made responsible.